Okay, so we're re-recording this video. Haven't had to do that in a while. How are you guys? Good night? Good day? Noon? Evening? Whenever you're getting this message. So what's this video about? This video is about hair and representation. What do you mean? What do you mean representation and hair? Well, I was asked this question the other day. Why do you spend so much time on your hair? And I can understand that question. And I also respect that it comes from a perspective that the observance, maybe on their own life, says, oh, this much amount of time is required to spend on hair, which means there's less time somewhere else. I can understand that. And then again, at the grocery store, why does it seem like you have your hair cut so often? I can understand. Because if you're going to get your hair cut so often, the time to there and back is time. The time amount spent to make the currency needed is spent there. And then the time sitting in the chair is there. It's all time going out. The time doing your hair is there. It's all time going out. So I can understand. So I said, well, here's the thing about the haircut. I've been cutting our own hair for 3 years. And we're still learning. And for a year, the neighbors didn't even see me. Where is he? What's he up to? Yeah, looking like a fool, learning how to cut my hair. On that. And then, let's say, before I answer the question, in my head I might be thinking, why don't you spend more time on your hair? Why don't you have your hair cut more often? Because in terms of being unaware of how a person represents themselves, I would be against that. And so, for example, as soon as I walk out the front door, I'm representing something. In the initial moment that someone else perceives and experiences their idea of me, I'm representing something. Same thing happens when you walk into a professional place and they have a name badge, or a hotel and they have the hotel outfit on. They're representing something. So as soon as you walk out of the door, whether you want to or not, that's happening. And so then you see someone, maybe you don't really know them. And you're like, they put their hair together and it took a lot of time. Why would they do that? Shouldn't they be investing more time doing something else, bettering themselves? It's reasonable. Or you see someone and you're like, they didn't even do their hair. Shouldn't they be at least putting a little more consideration into their outfit? It's also reasonable. Because either way, whatever is inaccurate means that there's something that's accurate in it of itself. So what could be accurate is the person that they're seeing could be someone of great, great influence and ever increasing potential and participating in the things that are contributing to what is good and the best outcomes. It could be that person that they're having an inaccurate observational assessment about. So then, let's say I were to answer. And I said something like that. Well, why don't you spend more time? And it might sound something like, it'll take me too much time to do so. Because then I would say, it doesn't take me that long anymore. Because we've been cutting our own hair. And we've been doing the hair on the same head our whole life. And just like a bike, you don't really think about this leg and then this leg and handlebar. You just do it. It doesn't take us that much time. Oh. Yeah. I mean, you can't really rebuttal a question. Maybe you can leave a question with a question. So it's like, why did you think that? Or, what would your suggestion be? And that also is really beautiful. Because what you have is a respect of these two perspectives that are built on each perspective having their own experience relative to their experience with time and yield. So even though there may be an initial difference in representation, because there's also a difference in yield, the very curiosity and difference can run into each other. And then, well, what could bind and expand on that? What could bind this polarity and this polarity and expand on that as they run into each other? Maybe it's something like, I can respect what you're thinking. I've even thought that. I've even participated in what you're thinking about and what you told me about. Because also in some videos, I'm like, the other video, I'm like, oh, we have a hat on and we didn't do our hair. Sometimes I have a sleeveless shirt, just cut. I have 10 white shirts, 10 black shirts, a bunch of blue shirts, a bunch of yellow shirts. I get it. Oh. So then it's like, well, because we understand each other, that's what's binding. The understanding and the will to do so. Yeah. The existing understanding and then the will to do so. And then you run into each other and then you spark this catalyzing event. And then the sparking, you start to unpack where these two perspectives come from. And you're like, well, what's the yield from this side and that side? Oh, you talk about it. Whoa, there's way more yield than I ever thought. Okay, so that's just answering the question, right? So then how does it get to, going back to the representation thing or representing thing, when you step outside of your door, you're always representing something. So let's say I'm out on one of the days where I'm just wearing a hat or my hair's not done. And the people that wear a hat or their hair they don't do their hair, they might be like, oh, I know that guy, he's smart just like me. Doesn't waste time on that. And then I might go out with my hair done and something more of an outfit on. And I'm like, oh, I know that guy. He cares about how he's, whatever, dressing. So right there you have these two polarities of a form of representation already existing from these perspectives that kind of bring you in at whoever's looking at you, right? Whoever's looking at you kind of brings you in. And it's almost like a uniform, like I said, that badge where you work or a hotel. Well, then, so what happens after that? Well, maybe just one of two things. You wear the same uniform all the time, or you don't. Oh, uniform, but relax. Okay, relax. Hear me out for a second. These perspectives in respect come from different worlds. So if you're uniformation to one world only, maybe it's not the easiest thing to have your world unpacked in a way that can bind with another one. So maybe at the basic level, like we were saying, you have the respect of both perspectives, the understanding because you participated in both forms, And because you participated in both forms, you can participate in the uniform. And then one step from that would be, if you're going to approach another world, it might be less bad to consider the uniform. So for example, back in the day, it was like over a decade ago, I went to go visit one of my favorite cousins. This is the heart of Crenshaw, in the Laurier district. So they lived in a nice cul-de-sac with palm trees. But it was Crenshaw. There's a lot of blue in Crenshaw. I don't know. I just moved into the area. He said, come visit me. So I go visit him. But I have to drive all the way across town, into the heart of Crenshaw, into the cul-de-sac. And I pull up in a 2-door vehicle that's bright red. Red. And he hugs me as I get out of the car. The car looks nice. I was like, thanks. He's like, no one gave you a hard time? No. He's just like, so I didn't get it until later. But that's a whole nother thing, right? The fact that I didn't get a hard time. What's really going on there? That means people knew more than the perspective and representation of their own. At least, maybe it's just a car. Or, one level above that, it's not just a car. It represents something. We could give them a hard time. But you know what? We're in communication. And that's not what they're trying to do. And then he gets out of the car. Look, he's hugging. Must not be so bad. Leave him alone. And so how does that relate to the way I also view that respect and that participation in representation? I also view it as there's a whole nother world that's beyond the physical world. Okay, hey, calm down. Okay. Let's just say digital world for now, the video game world. And go back to the other example. You see someone, their hair's not done. You see someone, their hair's done, whatever. But they have so much change and goodness to share in the world, right? And then you go and pick up that person and you drop them in the world of a video game ecosystem. And they're like, listen to me. Well, what's that uniform? The online video game world uniform. You think anyone's wearing it? In 2007, the profits of the video game industry surpassed Hollywood cinema by a lot. And then with the implementation of mobile devices and powerful mobile devices, you now have these digital worlds that are not only a place to go, but they go with you. In other words, there's a lot of time, mind being spent in these digital worlds. Which means whatever we're doing, that we're trying to do for bettering, for good, for the best outcomes, in togetherness, there's that whole world. Do you know what that uniform is? So that's why sometimes you do your hair. That's why sometimes you don't do your hair. That's why sometimes if someone's coming in, let's say at a formal event, you say, you know what? He's with me. She's with me. They're not going to do their hair, okay? Or in an informal event, but they always dress up. You know what? They're not going to come informally. They're going to dress up. But she's with me. He's with me. That's a binding. But it's only possible first of all, with existing polarities, then understanding the existing polarities, then the will to say, you know what, I'm going to participate in understanding both, actually putting on both uniforms, and then I'm going to say, hey, bind. So that's why sometimes we can understand, or that's why sometimes, even though the question is a perspective, why do you spend so much time not doing your hair or doing your hair, we can understand. And so to me, the most powerful thing to understand about this is that because there's multiple worlds, there's multiple representations. Because of those two things, there's multiple perspectives. And because of that, there's a multiple way to understand and participate and then bring in and bind. And the same goes for maybe not this event, push away, because you know both. So then when I say everyone, and I don't use that word generously, if I say this would be something that we could be for, that we can use to rebuttal the things that are less meaningful and participate in things that are more meaningful, and that would be at least more powerful than what we're doing right now. And the most powerful thing would be if everyone is participating, aligning to the highest good, to the greatest good. Then again, everyone, who, where. And that's where I'm adding this last part of the perspective, which is the video game world. And so I'm running out of time here. I'm going to talk about it in the next video. But the video game world, I'm going to leave you guys with a little fact. The most successful and still ongoing popular online video game right now on the massive multiplayer role-playing game ecosystem is Final Fantasy XIV. And the person you're looking at, in the aspect that is player versus player, I'm the best in the world. Twice. 2020 and 2021. And relative to the amount of time that I spent in that game, hardly anyone knows me. But I beat everyone on the planet. Now you might ask, what's the point of that? I'll get into it in the next video, as far as really why I did it. Because it was about more than me. Even the senior players, they didn't like that aspect of the game. So there was something that needed to happen there that was more than about me, but that needed to somehow, just enough, make it about me so that people would at least have one reason to consider listening. Unpack it in the next video, related to this video. That's a uniform. That's a uniform. So then if you were to take me and put me in the video game ecosystem, at least in that one, I would say, hey, I got something to say. The ones in that world would say, you know what? He's got the uniform. He knows what it's like to live in this world. And not only live in that world, but the way that world revealed itself to me. This is also what made me special as far as being the best. The way the screens are when you're playing the game and it shows all this information and letters and numbers that say what's going on in the game, I turned all that off. Which means basically instinct I was running on. But instinct of what? Instinct of the guy who went into every single world that they built, who learned every single form of character type that they built, who learned every single sound, visual, animation, physics, timing, when people log in and out. In order to beat everyone, he learned all of that with less. And he became the best. That's my uniform there. And now why would I say something as seemingly lacking humility as I'm the best in the world? Because the game made the changes. the aspect of the game that was the most disliked, more people came to it, which means more people subscribed, which means the company made more money. And then they changed the game, like I said, they made changes to the game, they made changes to the arena that I was participating in, which means the world that I was climbing up, that version of the game no longer exists. So that's why the crown of the best is mine in that game. And I left. The job was done. I'll tell you more about it in the next video. Have a good day.